Welcome to the Flex Rental Solutions webinar. Today we're going to be talking about custom reports, and we're going to go a little bit deeper than we did in the first webinar on this subject. We're going to talk a little bit more about using different expressions and things in iReport so that you can really get the most out of your custom report designs. We are going to do a little bit of a review before we start that, just for people that may not have seen webinar part 1 on custom reports. So we'll go through a little bit of a review just to show how you can download the embedded reports and a few things like that. So when we're talking about custom reports, what we're talking about are a customized version of the reports that we already offer here in Flex. So most of you know that when you open up a quote or an equipment list or an event folder, you have the option to print a variety of reports. If you go to the project element settings for any of these elements, so for example our quote, and if we look at the reports tab, you'll notice that you can enable any number of these different quote looks. And once those are checked and you click update, you'll be able to print those and see what they look like when you print your quotes. What we're going to do is take some of these built-in reports, download the XML file, and then open it in iReport Designer to make some changes to it. The way that you will be able to download any embedded report is by going to the System Settings menu, click Embedded Reports, and this will list off all of the reports that are embedded within Flex. So for example, if I want to download Quote with Pricing Look B, I'll just click the download button, and that will put it into my downloads folder on my computer. While we're here, let's download a couple other reports. I do want to grab the shipping manifest. Maybe let's grab the shipping manifest with terms. And I've also downloaded a couple other ones earlier. I downloaded the budget summary agreement look A, so we'll see that in my downloads folder when we get there. So after we've downloaded the reports that we want to customize, we'll come over and open our JasperSoft iReport Designer. Now, if you'll remember in the first part of the Custom Reports webinar, we dealt more with the JasperSoft Studio, which is essentially the same thing. It's just their updated version, kind of replaced the iReport Designer, but it does a lot of the same stuff. A lot of people have been using and continue to want to use the iReport Designer. I do believe that they've ended their support at version 5.6, but they will still be releasing critical updates, if any. So they don't have full-time support for the iReport Designer anymore, but it's still definitely a very useful tool. And I know that a lot of people and our customers in Flex that have been doing their own custom reports are using iReport instead of the JasperSoft Studio. So if you need to download that, it's just a simple Google JasperSoft iReport. And then I recommend downloading the most recent version, which I believe is 5.6. You may or may not have to sign up for an account to be able to download this. I know you have to sign up for an account to download the JasperSoft Studio, but I think you might be able to download iReport without an account. And then once you've downloaded and installed that, you'll be able to open any of those XML files that you downloaded. So for example, I just downloaded the Quote with Pricing Look B. I could double click on that, and that will open the JXML file, or I believe it's a JRXML file of Quote with Pricing Look B. And this is just all of the code that goes behind creating that report. I could also open the budget summary, look A, and then let's also open the shipping manifest with terms. So you can see all these reports are a little bit different, and we'll show how we can edit each one, and we're also going to look at how to connect to the data producer for each of these types of reports so that you can know which of these expressions you can use in each type of report. So let's start. And again, this might be a little bit of a review for some of you that saw part 1 already, but I just want to show this for anybody else who's not familiar. We're not necessarily going to do any changes to these fields and the expressions in this example. What we want to do is just open one of our reports. In fact, let's go with the budget summary look A and just make a few changes to the overall look. So for example, I know some customers that do want some sort of budget summary page for an event folder, but they don't necessarily want the signature on that cover page. A lot of people will have their signature on a terms and conditions page or somewhere near the back, and they don't necessarily need it on the very front page. So what you can do is just select the fields that you don't need. And sometimes iReport, you just have to you have to grab a lot wider to actually grab everything. And then we can just delete those. We'll do the same for the title. And so now we don't have a signature line here on this report anymore. In fact, we probably want to remove this too, since that's referencing signing below, which we don't have to do anymore. And so that's just a really simple change, and you can do that, maybe just go in and change some of the wording. At this point, we're not changing any of these expressions, but you can go in and just change, let's say, for example, you don't want the submittal date either. So you could just highlight that. You might have to do just one at a time. Or maybe change the wording on some of this stuff. But we're not necessarily changing those expressions just yet. And so after we've made those changes, the way to get this back into Flex, we're going to have to click on the XML view of iReport, and this is the code that we're going to upload into Flex. So I'll select all and then copy. And let's go back over to Flex. And the way that we're going to upload this back into Flex is by going to System Settings, Custom Reports, and then I'll click New Custom Report. And maybe call this the Budget Summary Look A with no signature line. You can name it whatever you want, but I just want it to be very clear as to what this is. And then you will click Show Hide Source and paste the code from iReport Designer. And then down here, you'll want to choose any of the options. So for example, this is probably going to be applied to an event session. Since it's an event folder report, the authorized group work just a lot like your report preferences. If you've ever been in there, you could choose only certain security groups that are allowed to run this report. If none of them are checked, then all security groups will be able to run the report. And then you can choose which formats it's going to print in. And typically, if we're downloading and editing a JRXML report, a lot of those will be PDF by default. But if you want to see which ones can be printed in Excel or Word, just go to System Settings and Report Preferences, and you can open any report and kind of see which report formats it will support. And then same with paper sizes, page orientations. You don't have to choose any of these, but you certainly can just as a default. So then I'll click Create. That gives us our new custom report. But then we have to enable that wherever we want to use it. So I'll go to Projects, Project Elements, and we want to use that from Event Folder. So we'll double click Event Folder, go to the Reports tab, and enable that. And I may not have enabled the correct. Let's go back to our custom report. Might be a standard element, but I'll just check some of these other ones too just in case. But I think the event folder is considered just a standard element. Let's try that. So So let's go back, open project elements, then event folder. And so you can see why it's important to choose the correct extension here, because if you don't choose the correct one, then it won't show up as an option for you to choose in the instance level reports. So I'll click Update after I've enabled that new custom report. And if I go to any of my event folders, then I should be able to print that report from an event folder. Now sometimes it might take a little bit of trial and error. When you're just doing small changes like deleting things or moving things around, you're probably going to be fine. But sometimes when you get into the more complicated things, like for example, if you're changing any of these expressions, then you might find as you upload your custom report that you run into some problems. And usually Flex will just spit out an error when you try to run that report. It's not going to damage your system or anything. It's just if you try to print that report, Flex will just give you an error or something like that. There's also a really nice way that you can test whether or not your report's going to work just right here within the iReport Designer. And part of that is connecting your iReport Designer to your Flex system and to the proper data producer. So I've already done that with a couple. As you can see, I have my Flex system, and this is my financial document data producer connection. Then I have one for budget summary. Let's set up a new one so that I could show you how to set up that connection to your system with the correct data producer. So we're going to click this icon right here next to this list. And as you can see, they're the ones I've already created. I'm going to click New because I want to create a data producer connection for my equipment lists. Now it's important to realize that each different type of report, so like a financial document or an equipment list or a budget summary, uses a different data producer. And what that means is that it's going to use a different set of expressions and have a different set of expressions available to you to be able to use on that report. So to make the connection, again, let's just go back really quick in case you missed that. First, you click this icon right here. I think it looks like a plug. Then we're going to click New, and we're going to create a remote XML file data source. And you can just give it a name. I'm naming mine after my system address and then which data producer it is. So this one would be equipment list data producer. And then this is where it gets a little bit tricky. The XML URL is going to be a combination of a few things. First, you're going to take the beginning part of your Flex system address. And so that's essentially everything from the HTTPS to the /after.com. Oops, I accidentally reloaded my browser. So I'm going to copy just that part. The UI Flash stuff you don't have to copy. And then I'll come over and in the XML URL, I'm going to paste that first part. The second part that you have to paste is the identifier for the data producer that you want to use. And again, I will post these in the forum just so everybody has them as a reference. But it's essentially this long line. XML data producer. I'm using the one for equipment list. And then it's asking for a project element ID. The project element ID is going to be an ID directly from the element in Flex. So let's go back to Flex. In fact, I probably want to open a manifest because I downloaded the shipping manifest report. So let's find just a random manifest that I have. Let's do this one of Devin borrowing, I think it was some SM58. You're going to find the project element ID by clicking Edit Header. And then along the top here it says Show System Identifiers. Click on that And the first one is your project element ID. So select and copy that entire string. And again, this will work for any equipment list, so manifest or pull sheet. I did the same thing already when I set up my financial document data producer. I opened up a quote, edit header, show system identifiers, and I took the project element ID from the quote and put it into my BR1 financial document data producer. But this one, since it's for an equipment list, I took the project element ID from my manifest. And you'll see what this does in just a minute. When I start making some edits to my shipping manifest, then it's going to take this project element ID from that particular manifest in my live Flex system, and it's going to let me preview that manifest so I can look at all the changes that I made to my shipping manifest. So again, quick recap. The XML URL is going to be your Flex system address till the .com/, and then you're going to put in the string for the specific data producer that you're using, and I'll post those on the forum so that you have them. And then after the equal sign, you'll enter the project element ID from a live element in your system. In this case, I chose a manifest. So we'll click Save. I can even reopen it and do a quick test. Looks like the test was successful. And as you can see, I'm now selected on my equipment list data producer here from this drop-down menu. So that means if I go to my shipping manifest, or in fact, I think that was from earlier. Let's look at the shipping manifest with terms. That's the one I downloaded just a few minutes ago. And if I go over to preview, let me try that again. We might have to connect really quick if we go over here. It looks like I'm connected. Let's try it with our quote with pricing look B, because I know that was working for me earlier. And so what we see here is that my quote with pricing look B XML file is now pulling live information from my Flex system, because in my financial document settings, I provided a project element ID of a live quote in my system. And so I'm not 100% sure why I couldn't get that to work with my equipment list when I had the shipping manifest with terms, but you can see how that works with my quote with pricing look B. So let's stick with the quote with pricing look B for a minute, and we can show some of the other options that we now have available to us since we have done that data producer connection. The icon right here next to your preview, if you click that, that's going to open a, I guess you could call this an expression list. These are all of the expressions that you have available to you through this data producer that you can use on a financial document report. So the list down here is all of the ones I believe that are being used in the report already. And then this list over here on the right is everything that you are able to use. So you can scroll through this list and find a specific expression that you want to be able to use on your report. So the example we did last week, let's just repeat that. Let's say that I want to be able to put the venue onto my report. Before we do that, let's look at a couple of these existing expressions and see exactly what they're doing, just so we know how to add the venue expressions properly. Now, anytime you see this $F without an expression after it, that just typically means that the expression is too long to show fully here in this field. You can always find it by either right-clicking on it and click Edit Expression, and this will show you exactly what the expression is in this field. Or if you just click on it over here in the expression properties, or the field properties, I guess we should say, you can also see what the expression is here. This is also where you can change things like your font size, whether or not it's bold, etc. So let's say, for example, that we don't necessarily want to show the person responsible or the account manager on this particular report. So we want to take that out. Again, we'll just highlight those, then delete. And in its place, maybe we want to put the venue information, or at least just the venue name, so that we know exactly where this job is happening. So let's go back. We'll click this icon here. This is going to show us all of the possible expressions that we can use. So let's say I want to use the expression for venue, and I assume this will just be the venue name, whatever was provided on the quote. And what we'll do is drag and drop that down into this section so that it's now available for me to drag and drop onto this report. Now remember that first expression here, remember the second one is the actual number. The first one is going to be the caption, whatever you've defined as the caption. Same with this. This will be the actual element name, but this will be the element name caption. And if you remember before we deleted this, this was the responsible person caption, followed by responsible person name. And just a quick review of what that caption means. If you go to your project elements, and since we're working on a quote, let's look at our quote. When you go, like for example, your contact associations, the caption is whatever you've put in here. So for responsible person, by default, the caption is account manager. You can change that to whatever you want, but that's just what is there by default. So for venue, the caption is venue site. So if we want this to be consistent with these other expressions, first we want to provide the venue caption. So let's find the expression for that right here. And we'll drag and drop that to make it available to us on this report as well. So I'll click OK. And now if we come over to the fields, you can see those two new expressions that I added as available for me to use on this report. And it's really just a simple matter of drag and drop. And this is just asking what kind of value do you want to display. We just want to display the field value. In fact, that's probably going to be 99% of the time what you do. You're not going to use any other option unless you're doing some really advanced stuff. So what we'll do is just drag that venue caption over. Let's try to get it lined up so it looks about right with the other ones. And then we want to drag over venue as well so that it will display whatever the venue name is that's being used on that quote. And again, I just drag and drop it and then drag it wherever I want to place it onto the report. Now remember, since I have connected this financial document data producer connection, since I provided a project element ID for a specific quote, I can go over to preview now, and it's going to show me a live preview of the changes I just made with a real quote in my system. One thing I will mention before we look at that a little bit more, the first time that you go over to preview or the first time that you click this icon to view all of the expressions that you can use, it will prompt you to enter a username and password. And just so you know, that username and password is your Flex username and password. Since your data producer connection is going straight to your Flex system, then that's exactly what iReport is looking for. It points to your Flex address, and then it's asking for your Flex username and your Flex password. And it's secure. iReport is a well-known and trusted program, so you don't have to worry about putting that information in there. I've already done that, so when I click back and forth, it just takes me directly there. So let's look at what we did. First, I'm noticing a few things. Number one, the justification is wrong. Number two, it looks like maybe the font size is a little bit wrong. And also, these other expressions have a semi or a colon right after it. So let's look at how we can make changes to our venue/site or our venue caption to make it come in line with these other fields here. So we'll click on the field, and then we'll come over to the field properties. And first, let's find, I think our horizontal alignment, we're going to want right. So now it's right justified. If we click on one of the existing fields that was already there, let's look at what the size was, 11. And if we look at the size of the one that we just placed, we're only at 10, so let's bump that up to 11. And then finally, let's see how we can get that colon in there as well. This is actually coming from the field expression. And since that's a little bit tight, let's right-click and go to Edit Expression so we can see exactly what's happening. It looks like we have the expression, and then we've added a plus, and then in quotation marks, the colon. So let's copy that. I'm just going to copy that last part, and I want to add that to my venue caption. Click Apply. And so now when I go to preview, I should have it right justified. Font size looks normal, and now I have the colon coming right after. So that's a pretty simple change, but it gives you a really good idea of what you are capable of doing in terms of being able to edit things here on these reports. Some of it will probably take some trial and error where you kind of click on an existing expression, see how they're doing things, and then add the expression that you want. Also notice that in a lot of places, they're not even necessarily using an expression, it's just straight text. And you can just change that. Maybe you want to go into the text field expression specifically and change that. So two different types of fields you could have there. Something with an actual expression that's going to pull information from Flex, and then one where you just hand type something in there. So again, just click on this icon right here next to preview where you can see all of the different expressions that you have available to you, and most of them are pretty self-explanatory, where it's easy to tell exactly what it is, like your venue default phone number. It's pretty straightforward. And if you want to be able to use that on your report, just drag and drop it to the bottom section. Click OK, and then in the fields, that should be available to you now to drag and drop onto the report. And of course, I wouldn't really actually put that there, but that's just a quick example of how you can do that. Again, remember that each different type of element or report will take a different data producer. So financial documents for quote is using the financial document data producer. And for equipment lists, you have to use the equipment list data producer. And again, I'll have those in the forum just for this webinar topic. I'll have the exact lines that you have to copy over as you're setting up this connection. And then you put in that project element ID. So let's just quickly upload, just for those of you who may not have been here when we did this, upload what change we made to quote with pricing look B. Again, we'll go to XML. This is all of the code. We'll select all and copy. And then go back to Flex. Go to System Settings, Custom Reports. And I already have a quote with pricing look, or a quote with pricing B custom set up. So let's maybe just modify this one. I'll go to the show hide source, select all and delete, and then I'm going to paste the new code from the quote with pricing look B that I just edited now. All the other settings are probably already there, but you would want to check that as a financial document valid extension. I'm doing mine as a PDF, and then update. And then again, you'll just want to double check that in the reports tab, you see that as an available report. Make sure it's checked, then click update so that you can go to any quote in your system. And in the reports section, be able to print out the custom report that we just designed. And you can see that information there from the changes that we made. So there's really a lot you can do in the iReport Designer. We just looked at a few simple options like removing some of the interface elements and of course changing the expression that you use based on the data producer connection. And then of course looking at that live preview so I don't have to export the XML and load it into the custom report section every single time. When I want to test it, I could just do a quick preview just to make sure it's looking good and that there aren't any issues there. I will mention that we did just provide this webinar as a service to you so that you can get off on the right foot in designing your own custom reports. Most of you know that you can request custom reports from us here at Flex. I believe it costs about $110 per hour, and basically we'll design everything for you, go into iReport and do exactly what you requested. Now, the reason why we wanted to provide this as a service to you and show you this webinar is because honestly, that's not really a revenue source for us here at Flex. We subcontract a designer and he's basically getting that $110 per hour. We're not making any money off of that. We just provide it as a service to you so that you can have the option of custom reports. And so a lot of people wonder why we're teaching you how to do this if it makes us lose money, but the fact is we don't lose money from it. We don't make money from it in the first place. So we like to be able to show you how to do this. So especially if you have some simple changes that you want to make, you should just be able to do that yourself. It saves you a little bit of money and it saves us some time as well so that we aren't needing to facilitate that custom report request. Of course, we still are doing custom report requests. Some of them are a little bit more complicated. That would be a little bit harder for you to do yourself, and we still will do that. But we like to offer this as a service to you so that you can know how to do at least some of these simple changes so you don't have to request a custom report every time. Also know that this is out of the scope of our normal support. So we ask that if you have any questions about this, that you don't email support@flexrentalsolutions.com with any questions about how to use iReport Designer or anything about the expressions to use, because our normal support staff doesn't know anything about that. That's not within the scope of their support, and so you won't get a response from them. If you do need support on designing custom reports and you want some training to learn a little bit more, then we can set you up with somebody. Again, that would be $110 per hour, but that could be invaluable to you to learn some of the things that will help you to move forward with your custom reports so that you can design as many as you need to without the help from us here at Flex. So again, please don't email support with any questions about this. Our forum is actually a really great place. I know that we have in the reports section, there are quite a few people that have been discussing some of the things in Jasper reports or iReports. So if you browse through some of these, some people have already gotten some pretty good discussions going about how to set things up and deal with iReport in terms of designing your own custom reports. But if you do need any extra help, you can email support or training@flexrentalsolutions.com to set up a training with our custom report designer.